being here. My name is Hayden Phillips. I work with Rogers Towers Law Firm, and so I'm a zoning attorney, and I am representing Pulte Homes in their efforts to rezone this property as we're about to talk about for this project. So here we have Victoria Dostie and Ryan Switzer with Pulte Homes. They are the developer builder, and we have Jason Cruz and Ray Spofford with Julington to Miller. ETM is the planner and engineer on the project. So our plan is for me to give you sort of a general overview of the project and the rezoning that is required to do the project. And then I'll hand it off to ETM so they can touch on more technical design criteria and things that are more in their fields that I'm not qualified to talk about. And then we're going to break out in groups. So I will be in one location with Pulte, and ETM will be in another location, so you can actually ask specific questions to specific people, related to our respective expertise. I think that will be more efficient with our time. But I assume you guys are all familiar with this property, otherwise you wouldn't be here. It is 27.5 acres. It is east of Aladdin Road, and it has frontage on Aladdin Road. It is west of Oldfield Creek that runs along the eastern side of the site, and Julington Creek Road is along the south down here. So the property is currently in the LDR land use category. So that stands for low density residential. And so the LDR land use category is intended for low density residential uses.
That's current? That's the current?
That is current, yes. It's currently already in the LDR land use category.
One home per acre.
That's the zoning.
So under the LDR land use category in the suburban development area under the comp plan, a maximum of 7 units per acre are permitted. However, we are requesting to rezone the property to a planned unit development, a PUD, for a total of 62 single-family estate lots on 27.5 acres, as I mentioned, which comes out to less than 2.5 units per acre. So well below 7 units per acre currently allowed under the land use category. The lots will be 80 feet wide estate lots at 120 feet depth, but notably, they will have a minimum lot area of 9,600 square feet, which is 800 square feet larger than what is required as the minimum in the RLD 80 zoning district. So the reason that is significant is because typically in the conventional zoning district, lots that are 80 feet wide are required to be much smaller. So we're actually going to make our lots larger. So the point is, while it might seem like we're doing a conventional 80-foot lot development, they're actually going to be much more like RLD 90. So these lot requirements are compatible with the surrounding area. The Cross Street neighborhood up here to the north was approved for 80-foot wide single-family lots in a PUD in 2003. The neighborhood named Blair Estates, which is actually a little west of the intersection of Aladdin Road and Julington Creek, right around this area, was approved in 2019 for conventional RLD 80 zoning. And the Julington Oaks neighborhood, which is a little west of that, right around the corner from the property, was approved for 70-foot lots and 8,400 square feet, which is 1,200 square feet smaller than the lots that we're proposing. And so this area is RLD 90, and there's a huge portion of RLD 90 zoning south of the site as well. All that to say, our proposed rezoning is not in conflict with any portion of the city's land use regulations. In fact, it's more restrictive than conventional zoning in many ways, which I'll get to in a second. So, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the recent CAFT attempts other developers tried to rezone this property. Not trying to hide the ball here. So the first one was in 2020. It was a PUD for single-family lots on the same property, and it was ultimately denied by City Council. The second one was a year later in 2021 for a conventional rezoning to a conventional district, and that one was actually withdrawn by the applicant in the middle of the process. So in preparing for this, and in preparing this site plan, we looked at all the past objections and public comment from those hearings. We spoke to the planning department. We got notes from them from the hearings. We read the minutes. We spoke to the councilman, Mr. Boylan, and based on that feedback, we have made significant changes to the site plan to address those concerns. So first, I think the largest concern from the past attempts from the public was access. So on both previous attempts, access was on this one strip of land that's green right there with trees. I think it's like 20 feet wide. Based on the feedback received, Pulte has acquired over 220 additional feet of road frontage along Aladdin Road, and there will be significant buffering on the north and the south of this access road. So north of these lots, there will be a minimum of 45 feet wide buffer. South of this access road, they're looking at doing a 20-foot wide buffer. Now, that's significant because the zoning code only requires 5 feet right here. The zoning code does not require anything right here because it's single family adjacent to single family. So 45 feet and 20 feet above 5 is a pretty hefty compromise by Pulte in that regard. So,
unknown caller.
The other, I think, hot ticket item, in the last two attempts to rezone this property were cutting down and saving the trees located on the property. So the buffering I just mentioned leaves a lot more trees in place or planted than the past two attempts. Another significant thing they've done is along the eastern border of the site. If you can see, there's other site plans around the room, and feel free to go up and look at them at any point in the meeting. The brown line here is the border of our PUD, but the end of the trees here was the border of the last PUD. No, excuse me, I'm sorry. The last two attempts, these backyard fences are going to extend all the way to this brown line. So this portion of the property, this strip of land, is an additional untouched land that will be part of these applications. At its widest point, it's 220 feet. It's an average width of 100 feet all the way down. So that's another thing Pulte has done, to save trees on the property. And that does not even take into consideration the companion rezoning application that will be filing for conservation. So there are 16 acres on Oldfield Creek, extending from right here all the way down. This ownership, the parcel that this ownership is part of, actually extends all the way down to Oldfield Creek. I mean, this is Julington Creek Road, but most of it includes Oldfield Creek. And so we're actually going to rezone all of that into conservation, so it will not be developed in the future. So, as a result of that, no wetlands will be impacted on the property. All of the land that's within the coastal high hazard area will be part of the conservation property. So, as you can see, this is not just us trying to push through the same old thing that was already tried and failed. Pulte is making large compromises to keep the character of the neighborhood intact. So,
Are you going to have horse farms back there?
what's that?
You said the character of the neighborhood. Are you going to have horse farms back there? Because that's the character of the neighborhood.
No, we will not. It will be single family homes, just like take questions when we break out into groups. I understand your concerns. We'll take questions when we break out into groups. But right now, I'm going to hand it over to Ray and Jason so they can talk about things in their wheelhouse.
Jason Cruz with Julington and Miller Civil Engineering and Planning side for this particular project. As far as our component of what we do with this, our main objective is to make sure that as the development moves forward, as we design this, we're not impacting anything negatively from stormwater, grading, and so forth with the particular project. The development itself will have to go through the City of Jacksonville civil engineering review process, called 10-step review. It'll also have to go before the River Water Management District. The Water Management District is an agency that manages and regulates the stormwater requirements that are put in place. When you go to develop a particular site, you look at it from a standpoint of pre-development. What's the water body doing today? Where does it go across the site? And they require us to make sure that whatever direction it's going, it's the same location that we have to go. And then whatever the water flow rate during certain storm events, it comes out as a CFS, volume of material of water. We can't exceed that. So every project that's ever done, this one and commercial, you have to at least at a minimum meet the pre-development conditions. And so this particular site all flows towards the creek area. So that is where the natural flow, when it rains, goes to that location. So we've placed our stormwater facility in that area because that's the most efficient way of doing this. The water will go in here. One thing this does is we do have treatment requirements and again the attenuation, which is the storage of the stormwater that has to meet the minimum pre-development conditions. Everything that we end up doing, most of the time, it's actually exceeding what the pre-development is. So we actually have a lower rate of water that's leaving and the water standing by to be treated from a water quality standpoint. I know that that's typically one of the biggest things and concerns when it comes to the residential development is making sure that whatever gets put here, if it's been wooded, it's not leaving the site and creating downstream issues for anybody. And with the way that this is put together and the way the design is, with the way that the Oldfield Creek is, we're continuing the same flow and water pattern that's happening today is what we would do in the post-development condition. That's, for me, I wanted to make sure that that is really discussed because I know that that's one of the biggest concerns people have. So I'm available for questioning when we break off if there's any other technical things that people might have. And then Ray is our lead planner, and so he's able to speak a lot on the zoning side of things and compatibility and any other additional questions we're going to have. So,
just to add on what Jason said, we would have to do a set of construction plans that would be reviewed by the city's professional engineer and permitted, as well as the water management district. The water management district will issue a permit. Within that permit will be certain conditions to ensure that you meet the pre-post condition that Jason mentioned, and those can be enforced by anybody in the water management district. Traffic is also sometimes an issue that we look at. So we've had another sub-consultant do a traffic study to look at the need for any turn lanes off of Aladdin Road into the project site. The city has a standard, a threshold of the number of southbound left turn movements that would trigger a left turn lane. And per the professional transportation engineer's study, there is not a need, it does not meet that threshold for a left turn lane. Likewise, there is a DOT standard for a decel or right turn lane going northbound on Aladdin into the site, and we would not meet that threshold either. On a separate note, we went and looked at the amount of capacity available today on Aladdin Road. The city does traffic counts on a regular basis and compares the amount of traffic that's on there today to what they consider their level of service or what is the capacity that this type of road can handle with the addition of the homes that are proposed, would still be below the capacity of Aladdin Road. So what we'd like to do actually is, Jason and I are technical folks, and we can go over to this area if you have any questions on a design or technical standpoint. And then likewise, you have the board to hear from one of the community issues.
I've been interested in both, so I'm not sure, like, I don't know, I kind of want to hear from both folks. So if I go to one, I'm not going to know what's happening in the other.
You can come, ask your questions here, and then come down there and ask questions. We can maybe go a little more.
I want to hear my neighbor's questions. I want to hear her questions. Just answer the question.
Yeah.
I'm not asking how you structured it, I'm saying how the neighbors who live there, we all want to be able to hear all of what is discussed. It doesn't, if I'm over here asking a question, you might have to answer the same question 10 times, but yet I'm not hearing the responses to other questions.
Okay, that's fine.
I agree.
I think respectfully, don't have breakout groups, just saying that they're in
Yeah.
a breakout.
Yeah, that's the same thing. You can do it that way.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
First question.
I have a traffic question then. So Aladdin's under capacity, but what about the accompanying roads? Julington Creek, the traffic lane for Julington Creek, the traffic lane, Loretta Road. It's hard to contribute to that.
That was actually in the required analysis of
We just looked at Aladdin, that's a good question. So the city has adopted a mobility fee system. It's a system where it's a pay-go. In other words, the development is proposed that has a certain impact. They pay their fair share of the improvements that would be needed to improve the roadway system overall, and then they can proceed.
Does that happen before the development?
Yes.
The improvements to all the roads, if that's not what's happening on
No,
our
that's
track.
not.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I know, it's always there.
That's the problem, and it never gets done.
Never gets done. And then they tell you certain things that impact you, to go sue that neighborhood. And I've got a good example of that. Engineering and stormwater drainage.
Yeah, every automobile that leaves that neighborhood is going to either Julington Creek or Loretta Road. Loretta Road has been in excess of 100% for years now. And Julington Creek is continually increasing since independence today. So if you're not addressing that, you're not really addressing the problem as it impacts the community.
So, as Ray said, we will certainly pay our mobility fee amount, whatever that is. But further, the city traffic engineer, transportation engineer, and their divisions and departments review this, and we will coordinate with them, and we will comply with anything that's requested of us.
What are you going to do to decrease the traffic on Loretta Road?
Whatever they ask of us to do.
That doesn't answer anything. It's just
You're having an impact, but you're not able to address.
Not to mention the traffic on Aladdin Road, while it may not be an astronomical number of cars, and this is more of an enforcement issue, but the number of accidents that are on Aladdin Road in the I've been there since the end of 2020, it's insane. It is not safe to walk along Aladdin Road on the sidewalk in the evening as it's dusk. It's not safe. I won't walk my dogs there. Not safe from people robbing one another, that's not what I mean, but I'm talking about drivers that are speeding. And so you're talking about 62 homes, that's gonna be a minimum of 104 cars, probably more, because I've got 4 kids, while 4 of my kids are at home, that's 6 cars. Now I live on 10 acres, so it doesn't affect anybody. But if you get all of that traffic going, not only do you have the Loretta Road and the Julington Creek Road issues, but you have an enforcement issue that is a concern. I've seen one of our neighbors on Aladdin Road, their fence has been knocked down, I think, 3 times this year. This year, from people crashing. That is an impact to the community. It matters.
Yes, I understand your concerns, I certainly do. As I said, it is technically the city's job to look at the impacts of this development, review and determine what is necessary, and then come to us and request whether it is a methodology meeting with the DOT, whether it is something more than that, they might request certain improvements. At this point in time, we cannot determine what they will request or what is actually necessary, but you have our word, we will coordinate with them and cooperate with what they do request.
I have a concern about the tree canopy that's coming down and its impact on flooding. The trees, the tree root system, the land itself is right now taking care of a great deal of water. You remove all those trees and suddenly you've got a bigger flooding problem than you have now.
So when we do our pre and post development analysis, we have to take into account the trees and everything that's happening today and the water flow that comes out of that. So the lower the pre-development flow is, the more I've got to make sure that I'm holding back so that it doesn't exceed. So when we take the post-development look, we take into account what vegetation gets removed, and we have to make sure that our pond and our pipe sizings are, addressing that itself. So it is.
I can tell you those plots on the lake there are going to be underwater, right? Not.
Yep.
They are,
You really need to take a look on Friday morning.
Well, so I agree. I mean, when we go through and start to do the drainage and design and stuff, we have to build a lot to a certain elevation to make sure that
It is right there behind the lake. There were those lots of that.
Yeah, it's okay, we're not impacting it. Our water flow that's coming out is going to be at a existing.
Habitat or animals that live there. The environment on that side of that road.
I agree. We all moved here for the beauty of the mandarin, for the wildlife, for the nature.
Correct.
Has anybody thought about being a conservationist? To preserve and protect this beautiful nature that we live in?
If Pulte really wants to do that, they buy the whole lot and put all of it in conservation, but they're just gonna put, what, 5%? Make themselves feel good?
Well, the
Oh, it's already wetlands, so what are they protecting? Their conscience? I mean, some of the current zoning is actually swamp. I live on Old Field Creek, and the back 4.5, 5 acres of my property is swamp. And right now, it is extremely wet swamp. Because at the end of the day, no matter what.
Old Field Creek is a floodway.
Yes.
We have flood zones, A, B, C, whatever you want. But a floodway, that means it's going to the river, to the ocean, to Australia, if you wish. That's going to be a huge fault. Yeah, runoff is going to erode that back there, and it's going to cause more trees to fall down.
Oh, yeah, there's gonna be an HOA community where you can't have dead grass, so everybody can put fertilizer and chemicals. All that's gonna go into the pond, and all of that is going to affect your area.
You have a water problem,
Yeah.
because that's a floodway. And that floodway right now, and I've had many people come out and address it, nobody takes care of a floodway. And you can ask Mr. Boyler, because I've contacted him about that as well, and he referred me to other people. I've had biologists out, they say everything looks right, but when these trees start crisscrossing as they fall down from erosion, from overflow into the floodway, it backs up the floodway. What happens to everybody's yard that's along these creeks and waterways that are supposed to dump in there, it backs up. So we're seeing higher water levels, and this is only going to increase it, let alone the fact, I've traversed this property. There are gopher tortoises out there, and we all know there's deer, and there's turkeys, and we all get visits from them throughout the year. I don't know, but y'all are going to have to round up all the gopher turtles. You can't go right now, because this is hatch season. Okay, all the way through November. They'd be very careful with the mating season, the hatching season, you got,
Oh, they'll just.
the FWC, you're gonna have to follow their organizational rules, the state laws.
We're absolutely planning to comply with
But
all
do you know
regulations
the
in that regard.
statistics of the livelihood of those tortoises when they're removed from their homes? That statistic for their livability decreases
Yeah, their
tenfold.
survival was.
We will absolutely comply with all surveying, management, and relocation requirements under the applicable
Is that a
regulations.
question or statement?
All right, so this is gonna be on central sewer. Are you guys running a force main on the property? Where is it coming onto? As far as I know, most of the properties surrounding it are on septic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
JEA, it's in this JEA service area, and it would have centralized water and sewer.
where would you be extending off of?
Well, we're actually looking at a couple different routes potentially, one up Aladdin and one to the rear.
Okay, so if that was.
We haven't-
Okay, but if that happened, would Pulte be interested in paying for the hookup of all the properties that are extending adjacent to that? Because I mean, one of the issues with Oldfield Creek, we're talking about making it better, it's been impaired for fecal coliform bacteria since the early 2000s. It's been verified that it's human feces in the creek. Probably due to family septic tanks. So if we want to talk about improving the area, you know, it's up to these people if they want to, but if Pulte wanted to pay for these people to get off of septic and get onto central sewer, so that some of these failing septic systems get out of the area and out of the creek, I mean, that would be something that would partially be a mitigation to the damage that you're doing to the area. You're not improving anything, but it would be kind of a step in the right direction, getting some of these septic tanks out of the area. Or another thought is just, I know you talked about, oh, we're going to have state law, whatever you want to market it as, just maximize the density. Like, build an island in there, but then build super large buffers around it. Put 7 units per acre, put on the center point of that property, and have a large dedicated buffer so that people living around it never have to see it.
You can't maximize profit if you do that.
So,
Their whole issue.
they can still make a profit, they can't maximize it, yes.
Yeah.
But that's just a low impact development design that would go a longer way than what you're proposing to do, which is just.
Either way, you're gonna make it money.
Currently, the zoning, I looked up the zoning of all this property, it's zoned rural residential, no more than 2 units per acre as the city lists. And what you stated earlier was 7 units per acre.
So I stated that the land use category, if the land use category is
Okay,
zoning.
I just misunderstood.
Yeah, so we're not changing the land use category. That's what this entire area is. If that was zoomed out even further, everything you could see would be WR, land use category.
Gotcha.
which is
I just
intended-
misunderstood what
Right,
you said. I
right.
wanted
But
to-
so that's intended for low-density residential uses under the comprehensive plan of the city.
I guess my big problem with that is like, it started with one community that pushed the limit a little too much, and it was a little bit smaller lots, more people, and then it became this norm of, well, that's what the surrounding area is. Well, if you think back to what it was originally, that's not what it was, and it took that one planning development people to come in and say that, and now you're saying the same thing, so what's gonna happen next?
Well,
Like setting that precedent.
they're
you
going
know?
to the closest probable outcome that they're hoping to get. Like, they're going to that neighborhood north, or they're like, oh, well, outside of this picture over here, these homes over here, this is what we want to do. It's not characteristic of most of the lots surrounding it, but.
But it just took that one little notch.
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, because we are west, so y'all are back right up. We're right there. And you indicated in your one comment was the fact that you've got to come in and you've got to build it up. Now, I've seen it as all these subdivisions come in around here, then all of a sudden everything is being more dirt trucked in because you're getting the ground level up, which ultimately affected all of us on the Aladdin Road when the one subdivision went in. And everything started backing up because of it. So, because they did that same thing, they came in and filled. So, now, are these going to have septic tanks, or did I hear you having sewer systems?
his sewer system.
They're required to.
Okay. And currently, there's no sewer system going down Aladdin Road. So you've got to come in from another subdivision that's got sewer and tie into it. Okay, which,
Clarify that, would you? That's not what I understood you to say. I understood you to say you're going to connect on Aladdin, either north or south. And that connection is at Marbon Road, unless I'm mistaken. So is it going to be on Aladdin, or are you going to try to come through another neighborhood?
We're looking at two different options as well. It hasn't been settled yet on the direction that we're
Okay,
going.
what are those options?
Up to Marbon or to the rear subdivision.
Subdivision where? I'm sorry, clarify
I
that.
can't answer 3 questions at one time.
Yeah, well, complete the answer.
One
to
rear
this.
neighborhood.
yes.
The one to the north?
So up here, there's the existing JEA
Yeah.
service center.
Okay, now how are you going to do that? Do you own property there that's going to allow you to do that? We've been through this before, the last 2 times, and that plan was abandoned each time because you don't have access to do that. You got to get to the north side of Park Hill Road to make that connection.
Again,
And in order to do that, the HOA at Park Hill owns that property all the way to the creek.
right, that's a real estate decision and how that gets worked out. I mean, that's,
I would think it would be worked out pretty soon.
well, the other option is going through the right of way, up Aladdin to Marbon. That is a longer route. That is an option to go through.
Yeah, the previous developers indicated that that was not feasible.
But those decisions don't have to be made before moving forward. Correct. Which is problematic for the neighbors.
There are a couple parcels back in the back here too, from our gravel.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in support of many of my neighbors here in terms of the preservation and what have you. But I do have another concern, and it's working with the DCPS. They're closing schools. So if you're talking 62 homes, and I'm guessing, I came late, so I apologize, but 4-bedroom homes?
I don't think that was.
I mean,
Heather, yeah, we don't really know what's going there.
I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so these, it would be generally between 2,000 and 4,500 square foot homes.
Okay, so how many
So most of
bedrooms?
them, minimum 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 3-car garage.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Two
yeah,
stories.
so we talked about
One and 2 stories.
a little bit about the traffic, because now we're talking 3-car garages, so we automatically know that there's that. But I just, as a teacher and has been to a school that has been closed and now working at a different school, my daughter went to Loretto, it's maxed out. Loretto Elementary is maxed out. My daughter went to Stanton High School. We drove her all the way over to the other side of the city. Now, she's going to Mandarin, and it is over 3,000 students, and the traffic to get there in the morning, it literally takes almost an hour. And we live on Julington Creek, Shady Creek Drive. Like, it really normally is a 4-minute ride to get to the light at the landing in Old St. Augustine Road. On a normal day, on a normal traffic day, just driving somewhere. So I guess 62 homes, I think we can surmise that there's going to be a lot of children. And have you worked with DCPS? Have you talked to them? Because they're closing schools, is what I'm saying. They're closing schools.
20-something, I think, is last.
And the property, my daughter went there for 6 years, and I was a PTA member. And I'm telling you, the property is not that big, and I don't know how many more portables or sheds they can put on there for children to go to. So I'm wondering if you have considered that, and have you also talked and worked with DCPS in terms of the new residents that will potentially live there?
So I will say, I don't know whether Pulte has spoken to DCPS, and I'll let them answer this if they have. But I will say that the planning department looks at school capacity when they make their review and ultimately either recommend approval or denial for the rezoning. So that would be part of their review. But the schools in this district are Loretto Elementary, Mandarin Middle, and Mandarin High.
Exactly, right, and I think we're all pretty familiar with that point. So I guess as a collective, we need to also contact DCPS and the new superintendent to talk to them about the crush on these schools. I don't want my daughter having 30, 40 kids in her classroom when she's trying to be a nurse and going to the medical academy. And that's what's going to happen. We're talking three-car garages. We're talking kids that can drive. We're talking, high school kids and what have you. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to be realistic.
Question, do you currently own or have under contract all of the properties you need in order to do this project?
We don't own it, but we have it under contract. Yeah, there's a total of 5 parcels that are under contract.
Yeah, if you would be here at all.
Did you see
You ran
the
the
piece
bottom
on
of
that?
your name.
I do.
Where?
I live in River Oaks.
This wouldn't bother you?
Pardon?
Besides the money, this wouldn't bother
I
you?
can't hear you. Sorry.
This wouldn't bother you, this project?
Does what bother me?
This project, it wouldn't bother you. You'd have more traffic, you'd have more headache.
I drive the railroad every single day on the way to work and I've never had an issue.
I understand you said you make money, so you're obviously in a different boat, but it's just, I live behind you, that will back, could flood my house, could put me in a flood zone. Do you guys care about that? This project does cost.
Sorry, where do you live? I couldn't hear you.
Behind Oakville Creek. I back up to Oakville Creek.
You say behind,
Pretty
you
much right
mean
there.
east of it or
Yeah.
south of it?
East of it. Yeah, pretty much right there, Julington Landing.
So we are going to be substantially far away from you.
I wake up in the morning, I hear birds, I don't hear people. I don't see light pollution. I don't see anything, and that's why I bought my home. With
So
this
I would
project,
encourage you to
let me
just take
finish.
a look at the site plan to see how many trees are going to be in between
Not
the
enough.
site plan and you.
Not enough.
Ask Mr. Dale over here that question because
I can tell them all, I live there. You guys are saying they only building on 27 acres, there's 75 acres out there. What are you doing with the rest of it?
So it's actually, in total, what we have is under contract 44 acres. But what Hayden was saying is the unique boundary of what we're actually rezoning is 27 acres. So in totality, it's 44. The conservation area is 16, a little bit over 16 acres. And then that additional area is about 1.5 acres. So that's 18 of the 44 acres we're putting in conservation. It's 40% of the site.
Hayden, why don't you speak to the conservation zoning and what that does for this, for this area?
Sure, yeah, it just allows any sort of single family development within that portion.
Is that portion wetland? So it's not allowed anyway?
Right.
You're not doing it?
Yeah, you're doing the minimum.
So you can go and impact wetlands and do things.
Yeah,
And you can still do it, it's not cost effective, but
It's not
it's
cost effective, otherwise you would have went out Julington Creek Road because you don't want to mitigate those wetlands because it's too expensive.
not
That's
just-
probably taken.
Or completely
on
disturb the ecosystem that is wetlands.
So, okay, so the other question I have, and so, hi neighbors, long time no see. So, you're talking about the drainage and whatnot, and I guess, this goes to Councilman Bullen. We can sit here and say, oh, the city regulates that, the city makes us do that, it's gonna all be, put out to, the water's gonna go here, water's gonna go there. Well, we know from White Oak that all of the properties around it were destroyed. The horse farm was no
Yes.
longer allowed to have horses. To this day, I mean, if you go down Aladdin through these last rains, you'll see the standing water. You'll see the properties around White Oak, because it was raised, and it wasn't even raised that much as this is gonna be raised. So to say that, oh, it's gonna all drain to the pond, well, that's the same story they told for White Oak. And then those property owners surrounding there are still underwater. Because the city tells them that it's not our problem, we can't do anything, or we're not doing anything. The developer's long gone, so they can't go back on them. So while you say that, oh, we're gonna design it to do this and that, that's just not the reality of what we've seen in the past in previous things along Aladdin. And obviously we do have a problem with water retention. The conservation, while great that it's conservation, but wetlands. You can't, in fact, all of the back lots, when we walked out, I mean, Dale lives right there. He'll have 3 backyards backing up to his front yard. He knows that there's water standing. He can show you all of the wildlife on his phone that he's taken just in the last week. I can show you bobcats, deer, gopher tortoises, eagles, hawks, 40 turkeys here just in the last week. This is what is going to be impacted. I'm sitting on my porch this morning, as I do most mornings, drinking my coffee, listening to the array of birds and watching the wildlife. And it just hit me this morning that that is gone. For the next 2 to 3 years after this is planned or under construction, all I will hear is construction all day, every day. I work from home. That's a problem for me. And as far as the drainage goes, I think that's a major problem for everybody here. I think that was a huge problem, especially with the folks surrounding where this is all raised now. You're right, the development won't have a problem. It's the people around it that are going to have the problem. Because here we raise 4 or 5 feet and it's just rolling off. Well, it's supposed to roll in this direction.
No recourse.
Can I ask a question about that? So I just wanted to get a better understanding. I think White Oak was the community you mentioned. Is your understanding that the drainage issues are related to the fill that was happening during development there?
The water can't flow to the
drainage
creek.
problem was the 2 dry ponds out front were never connected. They should have been. We get an excessive amount of rain coming down Aladdin Road on the east side, and when those filled up, they flow across Aladdin Road to the west, and all that water on Aladdin Road on the west side comes to my property. I provide the network, the conduit, for draining 100 acres of stormwater through my property that I own. I pay taxes. They don't compensate me. They've given me nothing for it. I flooded for 20 years. It wasn't until the Blair estate went in and something was finally done. Okay, we just alleviated my flooding problem now. Is any of that stormwater on the east side going to cross back over Aladdin to the west side? To the west?
No, sir. No.
And also the last 2 proposals that were submitted, all that water coming down on Aladdin Road on the east side, they said they were going to capture it and stop it there and take it back and drain it toward the back. Is that still on the table? Because what happens is when that water comes down Aladdin Road on the east side, it hits White Oak Plantation, those 2 dry ponds that are not connected to the back to drain, and they come across Aladdin Road. Guess where they go? Not just my neighbors on Aladdin, it flows into my backyard. All that stormwater flows into my backyard on Julian Creek Road. I provide the outlet, which then goes under Julian Creek Road down to the river by Nicky Noten. And for 20 years, I lived with a flooding problem. Underwater, all the time. All the time. And it wasn't until when the Blair estate was developed, and with Michael and other parties involved, we rectified that.
What did you do to help that?
I spent $80,000 for a John Deere tractor. They gave me a lot of the dirt from the property, which I've been filling my property up instead of sitting in a fishbowl. So they said, elevate your property.
Sure.
So nobody gave me $1.
So we are
What
on the
page?
east side that he's talking about.
Yeah.
And the ditch is in front of our property. And so we watch it flow straight down Aladdin Road all the way, past us, but then it hits that stopping point and then it starts backing back up our direction. Last time we had real heavy.
Yes.
We didn't, and the other thing, a lot of houses are off-grade. Our house was built long ago, not off-grade. Ours is probably the lowest one probably in the neighborhood. So it's just my fear of build-up, runoff, the ditches coming up, or coming from the backside, because I am directly, it's directly behind me. There are some other lots it's got to go through, but if it's all in the same plane, and I can't raise my house. So, and I've had to dig a ditch down my fence line to get everything from the back of my property to flow towards the ditch, so that I didn't have a second swimming pool in my backyard.
Sure.
or the pond like the neighbors.
I'm glad we came back to your question, because I didn't quite get the opportunity to answer it related to grading, filling lots, et cetera. So the reason why you would fill a site is if groundwater is pretty high, which I imagine if you're by the creek, your groundwater is probably at surface level or darn close to it. On this site specifically, groundwater is about 6 feet below surface. So we're not actually trying to fill a lot of the area on the site. We can actually work with natural grade. There are some areas where we're trying to fill 1 foot because the road's at natural grade, and we're having to get some separation so that we can drain down to the road, which ultimately captures in the storm system. But we're not bringing in 4 or 5 feet of fill.
That was the point I was about to make, is that that is not the case on this particular.
The dirt that we are using is coming out of that pond. We're not trucking in a bunch of dirt.
Well, and that's the same thing with White Oak. They're not 4 or 5 feet either, but we do know that this, I mean, I've spent a lot of time back there, it does fall off. So it is gonna have to be raised. There's no way.
There are portions, yeah. It is the lots that are towards that area, but,
What assurances, I mean, because again, just like White Oak, we have some other neighborhoods coming online around us that aren't even complete, that we don't know the impact that they've had yet, because this is going on all of Marvon into the wilderness. They've got Meekum Farms that just went down. I know that my son lives over in the wilderness, and they're already having flooding problems from that subdivision. So to say that, yeah, we're gonna follow the rules, that's great, but those rules work for you. They don't work for the surrounding property, because they come in and they say, oh, yeah, the city looks at it, or your people look at it and say, oh, well, the water should do this, it should go here and this. But in reality, that's not what's happening. That's not how they say that the water flow isn't how it flows. So we're the ones who end up underwater, and I understand, I love Mr. Cropper. I want him to be able to do what he wants with his lot. But I don't want it to be to the detriment of myself or my neighbors, because.
I've got a question on that. Since you're under contract and everyone is not wanting this at all, and we're going to fight tooth and nail, how about if you just cancel the contract? Let's just put this back. Yeah, I know you're going to make plans. I'm back there too. Let's just stop the motion. I know you've brought up a fair
To be like the surrounding area, you're judging it by these newer cookie cutter neighborhoods that you can reach out and shake your neighbor's hand. Now, this is a little bigger. I wasn't here for the last go round of this. This sounds a little better than what you said was last time. I wasn't here, so I don't know. So I will say, okay, that sounds a little better. This is not, I live on 10 acres. I have cows. I have donkey. I have chickens. I have all of these critters. That is what is on Aladdin Road. That is what is on Aladdin Road. Where White Oak is not a learn to rise and shake your head at. I mean, this is, I understand, this is your interest. I get it. And we're not, but
If you listen closely, right then was when Councilman Michael Bolin told me that one day the grandkids of our neighbors will be selling their property.
I know you did that, Walter.
If you're gonna mess with Mother Nature, and we're worried about that water, it is a floodway, and it does back up, if there's trees fall and so on and so forth, it's gonna cause more flooding for everybody regardless. But if you do that, it's gonna worsen the issue. The only way to mess with Mother Nature and change that, and Mr. Engineer, you can probably guarantee this, is to run a line to St. John's River from right there and dump it in the river. And this happened up on Julington Creek Road. If anybody knows about that issue, about running a line to Julington Creek, so what are you gonna alleviate?
Lady back here, she's raised her hand a couple times. Hadn't been able to speak.
I just had something to add on to the DCPS thing. For buses, there's not a lot of buses that run for DCPS at the moment. They're understaffed. So this would add at least 3 cars per house for 62 homes to go to each school in the area. I went to all those schools. I grew up here for the last 21 years. So I just know that it's going to add a lot more to the traffic, not just to the high school, but to the elementary and the middle schools, and the other schools that kids charter to as well. So.
She drives it every day, it doesn't matter, it's fine.
Here's the thing, I'm not here to use any of the school system, but I still care if there's a bajillion kids in a classroom. And it's dishonest to say you drive on Aladdin every day and you don't run into traffic, because.
I don't drive Aladdin, except for.
I'm sorry, I meant the road,
We
but
don't
it's
have
dishonest.
for Aladdin.
It's dishonest, because there's a part of the day that you cannot get through because of the elementary school people backed up. You can't get through. If you had a heart attack, an ambulance is not coming to get you because they can't get through.
I agree, it does slow down during school times. It does have a 15 mile per hour maximum.
Okay,
So it does slow down.
People are lined
It's never
up
made
2 hours
life work.
before
It
school.
never made life work.
Now that's, I'm just being
So, and looking, there's 62 homes that are gonna go, in this area. And I'm.
No, but I did get a job for teaching at Philip Randolph. That's a place last week. I got the laptop
Moved
today.
on to Aladdin was because we wanted more acreage.
I'm recording the whole
around us.
thing, so I
to
have
get-
what they were
we're in
saying
a
before,
subdivision
if you want
like
that.
this, and we left it because that's what we wanted. Aladdin was where we found it. Our lot is probably the smallest because everything along Aladdin, when it was all done, you had to have at least an acre, a little more than an acre. And ours is probably it. You know, that's it. Everybody else around me has got mega acres, you know, much more. So, so every time one of the subdivisions gets, you know, we come in and we fight about it, it's because we all came to this area with a home with more land around it. And all the subdivisions are small lots compared to, and maybe it's the price point, we can't go in and take and put, even if it was 3/4 of an acre, which it isn't, a home on. I know the calculation, you can have so many houses per acre, but you encompass the whole entire quantity into that calculation and then put them in on smaller lots, but you still meet the criteria. Even though if you did math and said you could put 4 houses per acre, you should have 1/4 acre lots. That isn't what the case is. So I think that's what everybody's concern is the smaller houses, the more traffic, when we all move to this area for the land. And even if it's an acre, I'd even go even 3/4 of an acre, because mine's probably odd shape. It's low land in my mind. But that I think is what a lot of concern is also. It's changing the character of the area.
That's my two-part question. You're not bringing any proposal, you're not bringing any of that stormwater back to the west across the Aladdin Road. And are you going to stop it there, the water coming down to Aladdin from north to south? The 2 other developers proposed to deadhead it there and take it down to the development, the stormwater. Are you proposing to do that?
We haven't looked into any of that.
So that's the White Oak problem. If you did that, it would eliminate the problem with White Oak, with 2 dry ponds out front filling up, flood. My neighbors would flood me as well. Because all that water winds up on me, on my property there. Something would be nice. I'm not against new homes, new families coming in, raising their families. It's a beautiful place to be. But if you could make some design changes, and like you were talking about, increase the size of the lots, and put green space in there instead of 62 homes and reduce that. I think we could support that. It'd be something nice to do in that neighborhood to maintain the charm and the integrity of it, I should say. Yeah, that's why we all moved there. I moved there because I wanted property, I wanted country living, and I wanted the land space, and I got 2.
I live on 5 acres myself, so I know.
I got 2, so
So how would you feel if somebody came in and encroached on your land?
It depends on the property.
Because I bought my land because it was surrounded by rural residential. I did my due diligence, I understood what was around me and what was possible with the zoning around me. I like she said, have animals, cows and whatnot, and this does change the character of the neighborhood. And the more that we allow, the more it's gonna happen. And what you're doing is pushing it out. Well, this is a historical area of town. It's just like Mandarin Road, and we talked about the overload Councilman Bullen last time, where Mandarin Road said, you know, the residents there said no more. The councilman at the time and helped put in an overlay that allowed us to keep this, because this is a beautiful, you don't find this. Where can you find this in Jacksonville? Are we just gonna be apartment homes and cookie cutter homes all over? I mean, Jacksonville is not, I mean, we've already got tons of people going to St. John's County to get away from this. Are you really wanting to push us out? I mean, because where are we gonna go now? We have to go further and further out. It's not paying taxes in Duval County.
Are you guys looking to compromise at all, or is this or not?
That's why we're here. I mean, to hear the.
But it seems like we're all telling you, hey, we don't like this. You're saying you're gonna meet minimum requirements, that's it. And there's no talk of, hey, let's do 10 houses. Let's do way less. And yeah, you might not make as much money, but it seems to me that you're in this for it's a money grab. You're gonna take this money and you're gonna leave. None of you live near here. It won't impact you. It will impact everybody in this room. And we're all screwed, and you don't care. I can tell by your expression and your expression, there's no true care. You guys might care, but only a little. And it's really, really frustrating as somebody who just bought a house, needs to raise a family. I bought here, I lived in Riverside. I got robbed my first day I moved in, my bike's stolen. I said, I can't live here. I need to live somewhere that's more like where I'm from. So I moved to Mandarin because I have space, I have land. It's protected a little bit. And then to know that there's only 3 houses right by, this is directly behind my house, directly. I'm impacted by this a lot. I wake up, I'm going to see lights, I'm going to hear people. And I bought it so that I didn't have to deal with that. I knew there was only 3 houses there. And now there's going to be 62 or whatever.
I'm just curious, are you like in this general spot right here, or are you? That's you.
Maybe. Yes, here.
Okay.
I don't think,
Whole creek between them, that's gonna be okay.
It's not. Right now, there's nothing here but 3 houses, right? So there's animals that go there, there's deer, bobcats, turkeys. That's all gone. They're not gonna live here, you can't, it's all wet. They're gonna die, and you guys, it just seems to me.
Oh, you've seen dead deer on the road.
You can't deny that, so.
You can't deny the dead deer.
well, that's because the other subdivisions, they're pushing the deer and all of the wildlife to our area, and that's why it's called.
Sorry.
I'm laser focused on you.
Of the 36 acres that they developed, I think we try to raise the water, give her some land, come over here.